Ankita?
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Sandhya Ramesh, and my pronouns are she, her. I head the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion vertical at Great Place to Work Institute, India. At Great Place to Work, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, we primarily support organizations in their DEI efforts. And I'm probably going to take a very quick minute to introduce you to what we do at Great Place to Work under the DEI vertical. So one, we look at building DEI capability, which means that we work with organizations to equip DEI professionals to support their own organizations with the DEI strategy, implementing actions in diversity and inclusion. That gives access to a group of communities members, which means year-long access to being able to have conversations, support each other, through learnings and best practices. So we have a very exciting team of inclusion allies who really champion our vision of making India a great place to work for all. The other aspect that we, support organizations with is the assessment of inclusive practices. So we support in understanding where is the scope today to enhance existing people and stakeholder practices to make them more inclusive, followed by a continuous benchmarking and best practices exercise. And as an outcome, there are organizations who stand an opportunity to get accredited for their inclusive practices. That truly symbolizes an organization that has a clear intent and a set of practices that's adopting inclusion as a key way of working, right? And then we have our consulting solutions where we work with organizations to craft vision statements, craft their DEI strategy, implementation, a very key aspect of it, which is getting on board leaders and managers to support and accelerate the diversity and inclusion efforts that the organization has. Yeah. And with that little introduction of what we do in the DEI vertical, some of you may have had an opportunity to attend webinars hosted by Great Place to Work earlier. Today, or rather in most of the diversity, equity, and inclusion webinars, we try and cover the journeys of different organizations who've been accredited for inclusive practices, which means these are organizations that have undergone an assessment of their existing practices and have met the minimum, the minimum criteria required for the organization to get accredited. And today we are joined by our wonderful allies from Nexus Malls. Nexus Malls is the Indian retail arm of the world's largest or leading investment firm, which is basically the Blackstone Group. Nexus Malls marked its foray into Indian retailing in 2016 with an aim to transform shopping experiences for Indian consumers. And we're going to learn a lot more about how, they've been able to build in a few responsible business principles in that journey today. Growing at a great pace since its inception, Nexus Malls now boasts of a portfolio of 9.8 million square feet, which is about the total floor space of the Pentagon of grade A retail space in the country. And Nexus Malls have thereby established themselves as one of the leaders in the retail real estate industry in India, right? And before I move on to being able to introduce our, our esteemed panelists from Nexus Malls, I'd like to start off with a small video clip that actually showcases the work that the organization is doing today in the, so just if you could give me a minute, I'm going to share my screen.
Sooner or later, most wars end, even the biggest and the most gruesome ones. But the war that Shubhjeet and his family were thrown into never did.
जब मेरे पिताजी की 1971 के वॉर में शहादत हुई थी, तो हमारी जिंदगी की जंग उस दिन से शुरू हुई जो अब तक चल रही है।
Shubhjeet's mother, Harminder Kaur, was only 20 when his father passed away. Since then, Shubhjeet has been her only reason to live.
मेरे तायाजी ने अपना बिजनेस शुरू करने के लिए हमारे खेत खलियान सब गिरवी करवा दी। हमारे पास किराए का मकान तो छोड़ो, झोपड़ा भी नहीं था। एक वक्त आ गया, मैं और मेरी माँ गली में सोए हैं। मेरी माँ ज्यादा पढ़ी लिखी नहीं थी, पर उसने मेरी पढ़ाई नहीं छुड़ाई। इसीलिए मेरी माँ से बड़ा हीरो मेरे लिए कोई हो ही नहीं सकता।
Shubhjeet became a part of the Nexus group when he joined the Mall of Amritsar as a security officer. This was only the first step towards his glorious future. Through Nexus training sessions and workshops, he learnt many new skills and had a renewed confidence. This former security officer is now the deputy manager of the mall. And he feels right at home with his senior, Colonel Mandeep Singh, an army veteran.
मेरी फैमिली में मेरी माँ है, मेरी वाइफ है, 2 मेरे बेटे हैं और अब एक गुड़िया भी। यही मेरी छोटी सी दुनिया है और मैं इसमें बहुत खुश हूँ।
Yeah. And I do know that this is a very personal story for all our panelists also sitting here today. And I think this, in fact, is just one among the many wonderful stories that we're going to hear about during our session with the team the team that's here today. We'd love to welcome as part of our conversation Rohan Vaswani, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Nexus Malls. Rohan also leads HR strategy and is responsible for people happiness of Blackstone's retail asset portfolio businesses across India. He has also led global HR functions across 11 countries. Welcome, Rohan, and thank you for taking time out to be here with us today.
Thank you, Sandhya. Always a pleasure.
Joining Rohan is Farzana Kapadia, who's the General Manager of Human Resources of Nexus Malls, and Farzana leads the HR operations, DEI, talent, and organizational development initiatives across the organization. She comes with 15 years of experience in leading the HR function across various sectors like real estate, aerospace, oil and gas, and automotive manufacturing. Thank you, Farzana. I know you've been an ally, partnering, through different stages of the journey at Nexus Mall. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out.
Pleasure to be here, Sandhya. Thank you.
And Rohan and Farzana, before I move on to the topic, very quickly, if you can tell us what is what really inspired Nexus Malls to craft this DEI vision. And I think it's so amazing to see these wonderful stories coming out as part of the Happiness Project. Would you like to share a few words before we move on?
I mean, at Nexus, people happiness is very important to us, and there are various ways by which we try to achieve it. And we are a very value-based organization, and one of our values is caring. So caring not only towards our employees, but also towards the society at large. And while our vision, mission, and values and strategic intent which like any other new startup organization that we were doing. We really wanted to be an organization that makes a difference. We just didn't want to be any normal organization. We wanted to be something that we want to create a legacy, basically, where everyone is proud of. And so there were 2-3 basic principles that we followed. That I mean, how are we going to approach this? So first one was that it should make business sense. So whatever we do, it should make sense. It should complement our business. So as we go along, we would dwell a little more in that. And secondly, we wanted to make a difference. So whatever we do, it should actually, we may just do little, but it should do, it should make a difference. And we don't want to do everything. We just wanted to do 2-3 things, and less is more. That's what our CEO says. And so yeah, so this was another philosophy, another guiding principle. And the third is that a purpose, a sense of belonging, something that would bind us together. So all this were the 3 guiding principles that we chose, that whatever we do, and our entire DEIB philosophy is based on that. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing, Rohan. So good to know that you all have not been bitten by the initiativitis bug that we sometimes see, as a common kind of common strategy in most organizations. Today, we're actually going to be talking about an area that's quickly gaining the mindshare of CEOs and board members in India. A new age principle for conducting responsible businesses called ESG, which is the acronym for Environmental, Social, and Governance Principles. Just basis some of the reading and the understanding that we have had, because we're also, as a institute, continuously trying to study the correlation of workplace cultures with, business strategies and business principles. It is difficult to measure an organization regarding ESG without a set of factors and considerations to rate them on. And therefore, if we had to talk about the 3 main categories, which is environmental, social, and governance, a little bit, so that, it builds the perspective of audience that's sitting here today. Environmental principles largely cover the company's impact on the earth. Any kind of examples largely include energy use, waste management, resource use. ESG also considers how the organization works to reduce any kind of potential risk through environmentally conscious policies. Yeah, so that's really the environmental umbrella. The social principles actually looks at, considers every party or every member that the company may have a relationship with. This could include employees, customers, shareholders, suppliers, and the surrounding community, right? And under these principles, we talk about some of these relationships are measured and what are practices to ensure that there is responsible trust building in all of these relationships. Yeah. And the last pillar, which is G, which stands for governance principles, mainly focus on the internal operations of the company, which includes aspects of transparency, board representation, leadership, pay rates, audits, where everyone's rights are observed, right, and protected. So in today's session, we're largely going to focus on the social pillar and the governance pillar, because we are going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts of an organization and how it's linked to ESG. And therefore, this session would not have been complete without having Nilesh Singh, who is the Vice President, ESG and Business Excellence of Nexus Malls. Nilesh has had a career spanning over 24 years and has proven to be an influential leader at Nexus Malls, focused on improving customer satisfaction and helping the business grow. And might I add the word responsibly to that. So Nilesh, I've had the good fortune of meeting you and learning that this is not the first time that you have been in a role that promotes responsible business practices. You carried this out in your previous roles with earlier organizations that you've been part of as well. So why do you think ESG as a framework is important for the successful existence and growth of Nexus Malls? And also welcome to you.
Hi, Sandhya. Good to be here, Sandhya, and speaking to everyone here. Sandhya, for a business, ESG generally starts off as a corporate responsibility, and it was the same with Nexus Malls as well. But over time, it has evolved into a very effective tool to build a business which is more sustainable and relevant to our stakeholders. Stakeholders here include our customers, our employees, our investors, everyone. So, like you rightly mentioned, ESG has helped us define our goals, be it environment. So, our goals lead to reduced emission norms, which actually help us reduce our utility cost. Under social, the diversity program that we are about to discuss in this forum, it has created a bigger impact than what we imagined it to be. And we always had activities or initiatives, like you call, around social a lot, right? And like you mentioned about governance, it has helped us increase our reporting transparencies and protecting privacy. So ESG as a whole, it helps a business evolve to make it profitable, to make it sustainable for everyone. So hence it is important for us, Sandhya.
Thank you, Nilesh. And maybe if you can just take that a step further and share with us, what according to you have been the three big shifts, that Nexus Malls as a business has made when it comes to adopting the ESG principles?
One of the biggest shift that we have seen, Sandhya, is that a top-down ESG approach works the best. So, if the policies are written and it is filtered down to the team below, it has a faster adoption, is what we have seen. Plus, the change is very immediate and if applied effectively. So that's one of the shift that we have seen. Like Rohan also mentioned, we believe in doing fewer things. That again is a big shift for us, right? Doing fewer things, but with greater conviction and to a scale which is impactful, and it is noticeable impact, right? So and the third, probably I will suggest, I'll say that alignment with the 6 pillars which have been mandated by our parent company Blackstone, that really helped us to expose ourselves to the international standards and expectations, which probably we would not have done if uh, it was just us then, right? So I think these are the major shift that we have seen while creating a framework, a ESG framework for Nexus Malls. Sadhya.
Thanks, Nilesh. And we also understand, because I remember the first few times when I was looking at what was getting captured under the framework, through different organizations today, whether it's a PwC or a CRISIL or Equity. We have so many organizations today doing the assessment, right? And when we were looking at all of those elements, it's also not easy if an organization has not consciously built their organization to
True.
scale, right?
True.
Based on those principles. So
Absolutely.
one could very easily get overwhelmed by the sheer number of potential changes that they can make. And now with the mandate of, from the Ministry of Corporate Affairs starting 2023 onwards, reporting from 2023 onwards, there's also now a need for organizations that, the large organizations with 1,000 crore turnover to really come up and say that how are we going to actually disclose some of this data, right? Now, given that it's fairly complex, and it's mandated for a certain class of organizations, what according to you are the incentives for the organizations for whom this is not mandated? So why would any other organization today actually invest in adopting ESG principles? What do you think they stand to gain from it?
There are quite a few tangible benefits, Sandhya, for both businesses as well as stakeholders. The first one, I would say that it gives you an edge. It gives you an advantage over the competition. right? While you are giving back to the community, it also strengthens your brand name, right? Not to forget that if you score high in your ESG parameters, investors are definitely interested, right? So uh, also once you start monitoring your metrics, like you mentioned about energy, you mentioned about waste, water, it automatically optimizes the cost. It starts reducing the cost over a short term and long term period. And not to forget about the green loans, right? So we have managed to get green loans, which gives you a substantial lower interest rates at few of assets, and we are trying to get it across. And something that we always want, it is still new for India, is a reduced regulatory and legal interventions. But we are
Mhm.
hoping that going ahead, if the companies score high on the ESG scores, probably the government and the local authorities will not interfere in our day-to-day operations, or there'll be a reduced intervention. So that is something that we are really looking forward to in India.
And I think Nilesh very well summarized as well, because it also seems like a right ecosystem.
Yep.
I think there's so many aspects just within the ecosystem that's propelling organizations into a more in a space where there's more, responsible business practices, right? Nilesh, any customer practices that you would like to talk about, customer or employee practices that you would like to talk about? I'm sure we are going to cover a lot of employee practices in the second half, but I'd love to understand on the business and the customer front. Uh,
Sandhya, I would not be specifically talking about any initiatives. We have almost 50 plus initiatives ongoing right now, both on all the three parameters that we have: environment, social, and governance. I'll probably talk about how it has helped us, right?
yeah.
So, uh, the as Rohan also mentioned, it gives us a sense of purpose. The people who work with us, it gives a sense of purpose to the employees, which creates increased motivation levels, Sandhya, and it definitely translates to employee satisfaction and overall productivity, and which helps us in retaining existing employees, right? So, and also attract prospective employees, right? So, and the biggest thing that we have seen is that it builds on the customer loyalty, right? Malls, the shops inside the malls, they remain the same irrespective of which mall a customer goes to. But which mall that customer will go to will actually be decided how important he feels, or how if that mall is attached to the community, how well connected the mall is to the community. So I think these are the few examples on how the employees and customers get benefited out of it.
Wonderful, Nilesh. And I think because as a business, you just have such a direct link and impact, right, to the societies and the communities that you operate in.
Totally agree.
We are definitely looking forward to all the initiatives that are going to be coming our way. Because when we look at DEI, it's so closely knitted with our social fabric also, right? And this is where I will transition slowly to Rohan. And Rohan, we know that DEI efforts were underway. There were, of course, a lot of initiatives. There was, focus even earlier. What changed with, say, the integration of the DEI strategy to the ESG strategy? Maybe if you'd like to throw some light on how it's enabled to latch on to, a broader umbrella.
Oh, very interesting. In fact, I would just, while you were asking this, I was just going back and saying that how we were doing things earlier and what difference it has made. So so while we were doing, or a lot of us were doing, HR was, let's say, doing a lot of DEI stuff, on governance stuff, a bit on CSR. There was somebody else, operations, and there was another gentleman who was doing CSR, finance and operations, again a bit of governance as well. We were all doing good stuff. It's not that, but with ESG coming in, and suddenly the focus kind of changed. there was a lot of seriousness in terms of the way we were doing things. There was a lot of information that was coming across in terms of, look, globally, this is what is happening. Nationally, this is what is happening. These are the new practices that are coming across. So that kind of gave us a lot more insight in terms of what are we doing and how we are doing stuff. And then, suddenly, I mean, that's my personal opinion, that, we kind of became a little more organized in terms of the way we were doing things. There was a lot of clarity. And I think the most important aspect with the formation of ESG team, which by the way is a cross-functional team, our ability to do more, suddenly with the same set of people, and with the ESG framework coming in, the focus coming in, we got more organized. We are able to do much more. Our targets were achieved easily. Benchmarking our practices, and from the management side, that look, why don't you increase your targets? I mean, this you are going to achieve very easily. So I mean, I would like to thank Nilesh for this. He kind of showed it to us that it is very possible, and with his help, I'm sure we will achieve a lot more. Yeah.
This is so inspiring. I heard both you and Nilesh speak about efficiencies, and just as an outsider who's probably had not had the experience of really working and thinking through a business and a business model with the principles, it usually seems like so much of an investment, a rehaul, changes, right? I think this is so wonderful to hear.
Yeah, in fact, I would request Farzana to share a little more light in terms of, in details, how what kind of work what we are doing, how the efficiencies are coming in. So she will be able to tell our audience also that what kind of work is happening here. Yeah,
absolutely. Farzana, would you like to come in?
Yes, thanks, Rohan. Actually, just reiterating what Rohan and Nilesh said was that the DEIB strategy shifted in the sense that there was more focus on the governance and the monitoring aspect with ESG coming in. As part of the ESG framework, we reviewed all our DEIB practices and policies with external consultants. So E&Y was basically taken on board. Certain new policies were articulated, like the human rights policy, and then, like Nilesh and Rohan said, that of course there were global benchmarks, which were and standards which were taken into account while framing the DEIB policies. And then, of course, all of this was available on the website. It was available in the public domain, so which basically gave a lot of accountability and responsibility on Nexus Malls to be a good corporate citizen. And further, with ESG coming in, we also kind of built a roadmap on our DEI strategy. So we actually built a roadmap, took targets till the year FY 2025. So some of the initiatives that we took targets on was representation of female workforce. So our 2025 target was, let's say, 30% of workforce should be represented by women. And then we also took targets on hiring PWDs in our workforce. So our target 2025 was, let's say, 2% of our workforce should be represented by PWDs. And then we also had the special initiative of hiring people from, defense backgrounds. So thereon, again, we took a target of 2%. Then we took targets on, the entire human right assessment, which is going to be a periodical assessment. And then we took targets on, let's say, learning and development for all our employees. So this is something which is like, with ESG framework coming in, it was clearly spelled, and we took long-term targets around this. Yeah.
And I think it's nice, Farzana, because you also have that long-term vision. At the same time, you know what you're working towards. You have some yearly goals, right?
Yes.
And while we embark on this journey, intent remains intent, or what we call daydreaming when there's no action, right?
Yeah.
And so much of our action is influenced by, say, the leadership team. I'm sure with the likes of having Nilesh, Rohan, being able to influence peers, you also have your next in line, which is your people managers. And, you know, all of these principles actually need to be translated into day-to-day experiences, right? I'd love for maybe both Rohan and you to throw some light on how did you start generating more collaboration with peers across the business to get involved in, participate, contribute, enhance the DEIB strategy?
Rohan, do you want to take it? You're on mute.
Your mic's on mute, Rohan.
Yeah. So in terms of when we were defining the strategy and how we're going to implement it and how we're going to engage our teams around it, something that our passion areas basically, like I said it before, that it should make sense and then we should be passionate about it. So we kind of figured out that, okay, these are the areas, these are the binding factors that are common across all our locations. And based on which we decided that, look, when it comes to DEI strategy, be it in terms of women diversity, be it in terms of veterans and their kins, people from sports background, hiring disabled people in our organization, how it makes sense. So we kind of also did a lot of surveys in terms of how do people feel about it? Do they strongly associate themselves with these kind of initiatives? So we did all that. Then the entire sensitization program that we ran across for our people, that what it would take, it's not an easy task. These diversity that we are bringing in, they don't have to adjust, it's we who have to adjust. So the expectation management of our teams, that's where you guys also came in. You took a lot of sessions for us, and then in the end it was everywhere. We kind of had a very I would say a bottom-up approach, where at every asset we have a team that is responsible, and it's a multi-level team where right from one of the junior most employees to the center head of that location, ensure within that team there is the diversity that we are looking at. So I mean, we did all that to make this strategy and implementation a success. Farzana could add a bit more onto this.
Yeah, I feel inherently the DIB concept has been very close to our leadership, to the CEO and to the management committee. Also, it also stems from our values, one of our values being caring. So 5 years ago, we had articulated our values, and from there on, we had actually taken a lot of action points on, how to make this organization as diverse and as inclusive as possible. So there were a lot of initiatives that we were doing around this. So I think the whole leadership intent which is there helps us, galvanize this and have this implemented better at the operations level. Yeah.
Thanks, Farzana and Rohan. So to summarize, one, basically starting with a data-based approach, trying to understand sentiments. The second part is establishing structure, which also gives people across levels to participate in change. And the third being creating a common language on what inclusion means to us, right? And through those sensitization sessions. So, if I really had to summarize some of these three, some of the pillars of really strengthening an inclusion journey, this, in a way captures it really well. But we also know that India, in the India ecosystem, creates more complexities just in terms of when we talk about inclusion. I mean, just look at our languages, the different states, the mindsets in, say, metro, non-metro, tier 3 cities, right? And Nexus also operates in a very, when it comes to India and the social fabric, regional fabric in our country, you also operate in very different spaces, right, regionally. So what have been some key considerations that you've been able to take with respect to your DEIB strategy to ensure that it's also contextualized and covers some of these nuances of our country?
Then you want to go?
How it is. So yeah. So in terms of, it is basically the culmination of everything that I had just mentioned, that it all depends on the diversity and inclusion that we want to have in our organization, which will make business sense. Like for just to give you an example, one thing which is common across all our malls is women. Women is our primary shopper. So there are a lot of things that we would do, which is all across, and looking at women and the kind of help they need. So it's just not that we are looking at women diversity. There's a lot of things that go around it. For example, that we have, I would just say, small things that go a long way. In terms of, for example, we have parking, which is dedicated for women, okay, in our malls. Some of our malls have a security cell, especially in northern areas where women's security is a bit sensitive and concerning. So to give them a safe and protected environment, even if they feel something. So we have these kind of cells where, if somebody is not feeling comfortable, they just can go and visit the cell, and we'll ensure that whatever needs to be done is done. We have creche in a lot of our malls for our employees, not only for employees, but retailer and their employees. So there are times that, you need to take care of your child, and there is no one. In fact, we have a story, we have a video, we could have played that as well, but then yeah. So all those things, these things that we do, it kind of, yes, there are regions, but these things are common all across India. These are the points, these are the, I would say, touch points where we felt that where we need to address. And of course, the whole diversity that we have in our nation, be it in terms of from a regional point of view, won't play that much of a role. And of course, our local teams are empowered to tweak our policies and framework, or the way things are done based on what is applicable to them, and to manage their own regional sensitivity. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Rohan. And we've also seen like a few questions trickling in. I think just around how do you measure progress? What are some ways in which, I know Farzana, you spoke about a few goals that you already have, which is, around representation, around L&D. Do you all therefore have measures, dashboard analytics? So would you like to just throw some light on the measuring of efforts, DEI efforts at Nexus Malls?
Well, Sandhya, efforts are regularly tracked. It's tracked on a monthly basis. Now that ESG is the governance mechanism, to track and monitor all the initiatives and to report these initiatives. So, that is a department which is doing it. Of course, all the efforts in DEIB as such is executed by the human resources and of course the operations team at the malls. But yeah, so, and also that our parent company is Blackstone. So there is a lot of emphasis on the reporting aspect of all initiatives. We have mechanisms in each of these areas. Their MIS is created. There is a learning management system where we track training hours. Yeah, and also like for the larger business impact, we have something called as the happiness index, which is coined. Happiness index basically takes feedback across all stakeholders. This is primarily your people, the employees that work for you, on roll, contracted. This is also for people who are your customers, which are retailers who work at the malls, the retailer staff. Then the consumers, the end consumers who walk into the malls, we take their feedback as well. We have a community feedback coming in as well. And holistically, we kind of, measure ourselves to some benchmarks on the happiness index. Yeah. So I think cumulatively, all in all, putting everything together, all stakeholders together, we measure about, I think we are at 95% of happiness of our stakeholders.
So Sandhya, this is something very interesting, one of a kind. Not many organizations have this. So every month we measure this. What is our?
I was just going to ask you, how frequent is this? So this is a monthly measure.
This is a monthly exercise, and Nilesh will probably dwell a little more in terms of how do we manage this for community employees. Of course, I mean, for employees, we do it twice a year. So those scores are taken. For consumers and customers, we do it monthly. For community, we do as and when the community events happen. So, but the scores are published monthly, and I mean, touch wood, we started off when we started doing things in, we were at around about 86, 87%. Now we are at 95%. And trust me, how to maintain this is something that now, we kind of have a meeting कि यार अब इससे ज़्यादा नहीं हो पाएगा, इतना ही हो जाए और इसके आसपास भी हो जाए तो
sustaining. You're right. Yeah, staying on top. That's
just to add what Rohan said, Sandhya, these are all third-party surveys, right? So we don't do it internally, and we all have this as our goals, as part of our goals. So we all responsible for driving the happiness index within the organization.
Yeah. Wonderful. And I think having these collaborative goals is another very, very important piece, right? Especially when you're anchoring a very large intervention, or not large intervention, but large transformation of the business rather. Like implementing ESG principles. Nilesh, we have, I think, another question that's come in for you.
Please.
To talk about, some of the ESG related practices followed by your organization. Maybe if you can pick up one in, a few.
Nilesh said there are 50. So,
so that's why I quickly came in.
I'm sure he can read the menu list.
Can you pick up one each?
I can do that. In fact, I can leave out social because we have already spoken on the social.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Environment, right from having more renewable energy in our portfolio. We currently are at around 43% of the total consumption, which is green energy. We want to take that number to 55. Rejuvenating lakes. This is something that we started last year. We have already done 2. So we adopt lakes, Sandhya, and we try and rejuvenate it and bring it to its past glory. We plan to take up another 3. The target given to us is 10. That is something really interesting. So I think that covers environment. In governance, we have something very interesting. We have something called a compliance tool. So we have a list of all the compliances that any of the malls need to maintain on a monthly basis, and we track it on a monthly basis, right? So be it our licenses, be it our annual AMC contracts, be it our labor compliances, they are all listed down in that compliance tool, and PwC helped us make that tool for us.
Right.
So yeah, these are just a few of them.
Thank you.
You can connect separately for the menu list.
Absolutely, or download our ESG report. It has case studies. Something else that we have learned, Sandhya, is if you're doing something good, please share it. Right. That's how we came up with the ESG report and the case studies that we have started incorporating in it. We cannot achieve what we are planning to alone. So more the better.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think I'm quickly going to go over to one more question before, we try and converge for the day. I can see so many questions coming up parallelly. I think a bit on chat, a bit on the Q&A.
Can I take one more, Sandhya? The question is from Gautami Patra. How do you strategize ESG and
Yes,
DEIB
yes,
framework?
yes.
Targets, that was one of the major things that we struggled with. How do we arrive at 25%, 30%? You have to mirror the community that you cater to, right? So what we saw was 65 to 70% of people or customers coming into our malls are male or men. That left us with around 35 odd percentage, which were ladies. So that is what we were catering to. So if you are in a business which, let's say, cater to mothers, you should look at hiring mothers. That's the best way to arrive to a strategy as far as DEIB is concerned. If your product caters to working ladies, automatically you will have ladies in your team, right? So that is something that we followed. Yeah.
Lovely. So I think being able to mirror some of your business needs and have your solution providers primarily from that particular demographic.
It should complement your business end of the day. I mean,
Absolutely.
you cannot be going and say that, okay, let me do this. For an example, that I will on paper it may look very good that, okay, you are doing something really different and unique, but if end of the day, if it doesn't complement your business, it doesn't make sense, then the whole idea is not going to be successful. I mean, in general. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think as we near the last and most interesting round, which is our rapid fire questions,
Do we get a hamper in the end?
Rohan, you get a break for the year.
You know me, right? Stop following my schedule.
So, if we had to, before we go there, I'm going to request the Great Place to Work team to please put, the feedback link on the chat. So, we can also get feedback from the attendees from this session. And before we go to the rapid fire, there's another very special video that, I thought would be wonderful to share with our audience here. Again, part of, the DEIB, the happiness project, as we call it. Just give me a minute while I share my screen for that.
The audio quality is not that great.
I'm Fatima. I've always had this feeling that destiny has something against me. When I was still in school, my teacher slapped me so hard that I lost my hearing. I had to join a deaf school, but after my father's death, we couldn't afford it, so I had to leave that too. My mother had to take up a job as a cleaning lady in the local flower market, and we struggled to make ends meet. Fortunately, it was also during the time when I started my training at the Train Institute. Pawan sir became my mentor and my support. I finished my training and started working for Nexus. I was obviously hesitant and unsure of my abilities. But from day one, I found my support in all my colleagues and seniors. When someone thanks me in the office, it feels like a pat on my back. Can you see the smile on my face? Doesn't it tell you how happy I am working here? Now that I can help my mother run our house, I don't feel helpless anymore. And I definitely do not feel angry. I only feel happiness. Do you know what I believe now? I believe You can change your destiny if you have the will.
Yeah, and with that inspiring note, we're going to very quickly go into the last section so that we'll understand, some of our from Nexus Malls a bit better. So we'll start with the rapid fire. Nilesh, Rohan, Farzana, you have only about 30 seconds to respond to some of this, yeah? And then we'll start with maybe Rohan with you, and then Farzana, you can't say to reiterate what Rohan said after that. Yeah, maybe we should start with Farzana now. So Farzana, we're going to give you the advantage. If you had
Ladies first, yeah. Yeah.
if you had to create
with the DEI session, yes.
if you had to create an expansion for DEIB in your own words, what would it be?
It would be DIB accompanied with total health and wellness.
Okay. So you would add the health and wellness to the overall component. Rohan?
DEIBH, how happy are you?
Lovely.
Happiness.
And Nilesh, coming to you, if you had to look at an expansion for ESG, would you word that any differently given all your experience?
Taking a cue from what Rohan said, I'll add a D to the ESG. Sandhya, I'll make it ESG D. Diversity is really important for any business, and I think it's underrepresented in ESG. It's more outward looking than inward, so I'll add a diversity in ESG.
Absolutely. And even customer markets, how they expand, right? With diversity. Yeah. Okay, second question, and maybe Farzana, we'll continue to start with you. What is the single biggest learning that you have had from implementing, DEIB within the organization?
In fact, and also thanks to GP, Great Place to Work, through your workshops, I've basically learned a lot. And one of my biggest takeaways here was that each individual is unique in their beliefs, thought processes, abilities. And we need to understand our biases, overcome that, and that is when we actually evolve as into better human beings. Yeah, this has been the biggest takeaway.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Farzana. Rohan?
Well, I would be very, I would say, candid and honest about this. The message is that you have to start small with positive intent and with a lot of passion. Only then this will be a success. Yeah.
Can you stand the test of time?
Yeah.
So resilience, I'm sure, has been an important lesson that way. Yeah. Nilesh, you can talk about it in any format, whether it's ESG or DEIB. We're going to leave that open for you.
Sandhya, I think I spoke about it a bit earlier. Whatever you do, whatever initiatives that you do and you feel it's working, you should share it with the public at large. So it solves two purposes. One is people come to know what you're doing. Second is they can replicate it. Right. So I remember when we thought of DIB, we actually visited one of our hotel properties. I'll name it. This was Lemon Tree, and we learned from them. So if you can help somebody or another business to probably adopt few initiatives or policies, you should. So that's my bit on it.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Nilesh, for that. And last question, we can close with, any movie scene or, a book, quote, anything, Farzana, for you that really and truly captures the essence of, your vision for DEIB.
Yeah, I'm actually, as far as DEI is concerned, I'm all heart. The brass tacks, I leave it up to the seniors to do. But this is one quote which I came across. It is hard to have an open mind if we don't have an open heart. This is something which has stuck by me. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Quite insightful. Rohan?
Since you talk about movies, I'm going to stick to movies. See, I'm very I follow instruction in letter and spirit. You see, so one thing, one movie dialogue which comes to my mind is "All is well."
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Thank you for giving me time, Farzana, Rohan. I have two for you, Sandhya. One is picture abhi baki hai. There is a lot that needs to be done. So
Lovely.
the main story is still there. And second is miles to go before you sleep, before I sleep, right? There is a lot that needs to be done.
And on that note, Nilesh, I'm so glad that we plan to close with you because we are going to leave, our community realizing the scope and the opportunity there is to influence this space positively, and the roles that all of us hold as citizens of this country. So thank you, Nilesh, Rohan, Farzana, for joining us and being so candid and open to share your learnings with the larger community of Great Place to Work. We look forward to continue to learn from your journey and grow, along with you, right? Thank you. And
look forward to that, Sandhya. And thank you for inviting us. Great, enjoyed a lot. Right, it was interesting. It was not a typical formal webinar or interaction. I mean, it was a great session. Thank you for doing this.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, Sandhya. Please take care, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, Sandhya.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone for joining. Thank you.
Thanks.